Hello, everybody, and welcome to Dishing with Stephanie's Dish, the podcast where we talk to people obsessed with food. And Jeremy Intille is our guest today. Did I say that right, Jeremy? You told me, and then as soon as I said it, I was like, "Is that right?"
It's pretty close. Jeremy Intille.
Okay, Intille, like your intelligentsia.
Exactly.
I saw you promoting the Next Baking Master Paris on the Food Network on the Jason Show a couple weeks ago. And you were like sassy rock star pastry guy, and I loved you. And so when they asked me if I wanted to interview you, I was like, yes.
Oh, I thank you. Yeah, the Jason show was really fun. Off camera, he was all like, I don't think I've laughed this much in a while. Please come back anytime. And I was like, gladly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's funny. People get, nervous on TV and stuff, and he's kind of doing his thing. But when you can break through that, it can be a really fun experience. I'm so glad to have you on the show today. You are a pastry chef with 801 Fish. You are
Yes.
also, as I said, on the Next Baking Master Paris show on the Food Network.
Mhm.
And you called yourself the Susan Lucci of baking competitions, which I watched All My Children for many years, so I feel like, okay, I feel your pain.
Yes. Uh,
How did you get to the show? And give me a little bit of your backstory here for the listeners.
of course. So for the show itself, someone had reached out to me on Instagram. And at first I thought it was spam.
Yeah,
Uh,
like that's so funny. That like, don't they know that we're not going to take them seriously when they do that?
you would think. This is probably I don't know. I've been applying for shows. I guess I've never applied for a show. I've been approached for shows for like last 10 years. So this was probably like interview number 23, which is where the Susan Lucci comment comes from.
Yeah.
Um, and this time it like all my stars aligned. And this competition was really geared towards pastry chefs and not so much cake artists or cake decorators. So I felt a lot more comfortable within this scope. And then as for like my professional background, I went to school at the Culinary Institute of America at Greystone in Napa Valley, California. That's where I'm from, the Golden State. And I've lived all over Portland, Oregon, Cleveland, Ohio, Lake Charles, Louisiana, Brooklyn, New York, Hyderabad, India. Um, on the show, it even says I did work in Paris for a couple months back in like 2017. So like I've been all over. This career has been able to like take me in places I didn't even know I was going to be able to go to. So it's been a really fun and whirlwind of an adventure.
And then, like many people in the hospitality industry that found their way to Minnesota, perhaps the great Hazelton called you and was like, hey, come to Minnesota.
um, Funny enough, I did not come here for treatment for sobriety, but I have met a lot of people here that have.
Okay, I
Um,
don't know why I thought that. Maybe I read that, but a lot of
um,
people find us because of that.
yes, I mean it snows here so much. What else are you going to do besides work a 12-step program? I did become sober before I moved here, and part of the reason I did move here is for just to like change my routine. So like part of that is like getting myself out of an environment that wasn't doing what I needed it to do for me. And so I was like, you know what? I've never lived in the Midwest. Let's give it a try. Let's have some casserole.
I love
Are you thinking about hot
casserole.
dish here? Hot dish. My mistake.
No, it's funny because I actually do call it casserole. And I said something the other day about a casserole, and my radio partner like stopped me dead in my tracks. She's like, "What did you just say?" I was like, casserole. She was like, "It's hot dish." And got real like up in my business. I was like, "Well, sorry, I'm just gonna call it a casserole."
I mean, it goes in a casserole dish, so
It does. It does. Well, I'm so glad you found your way here. A lot of my family is in the recovery community. So I kind of feel like, I mean, I've been in recovery since I was probably 5 myself, just from my family and, all the lingo and adult child of alcoholic, raise your hand, all of that. So I do think that Minnesota does appeal to a lot of hospitality folks because they find their way here because of that or because it's a good community. But 801 Fish just opened kind of recently after they also own the 801 Chop.
Yes. So I got hired with the company back in November. So I did the show, I came back and then had a little free time. And then I found this job, which was really fun. So I started off at Chop with the intention of being the pastry chef at Fish. And then recently I got promoted to the executive pastry chef for both restaurants. So that's been a really fun and exciting new stepping stone.
Does that just mean like more work because now you have to do everything for two restaurants instead of one?
Yes. Um, yeah. And hopefully the goal is to advance into, because the restaurant group is in other states, is to grow into more of a regional pastry chef.
Yeah,
Um, so that is my personal goal at the moment. So
that
it's
sounds
fun.
like an awesome goal. And you can like develop pastry that can be used in other parts of the country or things that could be standardized, maybe.
Mhm.
One of the things about your bio that I didn't get from the show, but it made me laugh, was it was like Jeremy is approachable and relatable in his pastry. Ain't nothing approachable or relatable. You're too fancy.
Oh, I mean, I don't know if she's fancy. Um, but she does know how to have a good time. Um,
Yes.
I think you know, recently I did a live with Robert, who's on the show, my
Yep.
other buddy boy, and he had mentioned that rice bowl that I made in episode 2. And he was all like, it was like modern art. People are going to have a very adverse reaction to it. They're either going to like it or not. And that shows some real technical skill. And I was like very humbled by that. That's very nice. But at the end of the day, it's all like, it's pot of choux, it's rice pudding, and it's some nougat. And a lot of that childhood rice cereal that we make into those lovely squares. And that was it. It's nothing that is really fancy. No ingredient was really expensive. They were just put together in a very thoughtful and strategic way.
So what I'm hearing you say, and that does make sense when I think about you, is your flavors are trying to like create that nostalgia, that sense memory, that feeling of home, although
Mhm.
you're using the modern techniques to get there.
Yeah, and croque and bouche is something that's really elegant. A lot of people would be really intimidated to make it, and it's just this very regal looking dessert.
Yes.
And I humbled it down into a bowl of rice, which is approachable across many different cultures and economical backgrounds. So to bring something that's really high end to look very simple and very approachable was the goal of that nature, to show that French pastry is of course, fancy, but at the end of the day, it's something that we can all relate to.
I do kind of love what you just said. I've never really thought about pastry as like, um, is it for the community? Is it for everyone? Who's it for? Is it only something that you have on special occasions? I mean, because a lot of us, here's my pastry story, okay? It's weird, but when I was poor and living in the hood with my now husband, then boyfriend, I remember going to the store and wanting to buy some cookies. And he was like, "Well, we can't really afford those, but I can make you some cookies. I'll just go and grab some chocolate chips." And I like burst out crying in the store and I said, "Are we so poor that we can't even buy like packaged cookies? Is that what we're doing in our 20s?" And I just had a complete meltdown. And we laugh about that now, but you think about a lot of times the food that you buy in the store, it's that's prepared is cheaper or like can you make it cheaper? I know, and it's always crap, so you're always better off to make it yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I also grew up on food stamps, single parent.
Yep.
So baking was something that we only did at Christmas for many years, and it was something that we saved for. Um, and so I learned to bake using pantry staples
Yeah.
and not wasting food. So for me, a big part of what I try to do in a professional kitchen is utilize as much of the product as possible, because I know what it's like to not have money for food, and I it's very hard to throw away food.
Yeah, no, I feel you. Like I just made a strawberry shrub the other day with the tops of the strawberries from a dish I was making. And my friend was like, "Wait, what did you put in there?" I was like, just the tops when you cut off the strawberry. She was
Yep.
like, "Well, there's no like whole strawberries." I'm like, "No, you don't need them. We got enough flavor in just the tops here." She was like, "Only you." But you do learn a lot when you have to make do and you have to use things that are easily accessible. Can you think of like the first thing you made as a kid that like really got you excited?
Oh, I would say like one of the first things I baked by myself, besides cheesecake, because that was like the first thing I learned to bake with my aunt. But on my own, I made gougères.
That's fancy. Yeah.
Yeah. I was gifted like this like very pink, very large dessert book that like at the time everyone had. I mean every like 35 plus year old woman had, and then
Sure.
there was 10. Um, and I was like, oh, this looks fun. So I made pot au choux and just like found some cheese and herbs and like again, it was like about being resourceful in whatever I had. And that's what I made the first time. And I was all like, oh, this is fun. Um, and I think that also kind of helped guide me into being like, oh, savory baking. I love savory baking.
Yeah, and people don't think about savory as much when they think about pastry. They always tend to think sweet.
Yeah. And I think there's like also the notion of like being called a baker. Um, I don't know if you watched episode 5, but I did snip at the end. And I was like, I'm a pastry chef. Because they insisted on calling us bakers. And I was like, I respect bakers immensely for their skill set and their talent and what they do. But that is like part of what I do. Like bakers don't make ice cream, bakers don't make bonbons. You know, it's a very like, and I'm sure some of them do. No disrespect to bakers.
Sure, sure, sure.
Um, but it's like a very limited mindset of like what we were capable of on that show and in general. And I think like a lot of pastry chefs don't expand into that savory side of cooking as much as they could. I know more pastry chefs that can cook than cooks that can bake.
Yeah, because it's a really kind of different skill set.
Yeah, it's a lot of science
It's
until
so
you
much more exacting. It's why I'm terrible at it. Like,
get.
I'm like a third of a cup, a half a cup. Like, I don't have that. I can just do this and just getting the crumb right. And yeah, it's a lot more exacting.
Yeah. And like you get to a point where like you've made something so many times that you're like, oh, well, I know how I can adjust this recipe and still have it turn out. And, that was a lot of like working on the fly and like maybe an ingredient we didn't have. It's just like, how do we constantly accommodate the challenges that we're facing?
Is there
Uh,
something that you made on the show that you were like, I can't believe I did this?
I mean, spoilers ahead. My last dish was probably not my proudest moment. It was a little rough and it was like irritating because I was like, I've made this so many times. And for some reason that day just did not happen for me. Also, never use carton egg whites to make meringue. I like was like, I don't have a lot of time. So I just grabbed these carton egg whites and I was like, oh, they're peaking, we're good. And then by the end of it, they were like soup. So always use fresh egg whites. Don't cut corners. This is why you lose challenges.
That's funny
I
because who would know that?
mean, I should know that. I kind of do. I was all like, I have an hour left. Oh my God. And it was hard. I mean, it was not my proudest moment, but I think part of it was like, okay, well, every dog has its day. And
Were
I
you
kind of,
like upset? Like I feel like it would be sad and bummery.
oh, I was incredibly disappointed in myself.
Yeah.
I think it was also hard, and like what I've had the hardest time with post show is like I didn't go home for being the worst. I went home for being the second worst. Um,
I mean, maybe you just went home because you picked the crappy egg whites. That's a possibility too.
Oh, have you watched episode 5 yet?
No, I haven't, but
Okay. When you do, that statement will all make sense. Um, and for those who haven't watched, go watch it. It's very juicy. Um,
yes.
so like, yeah, so that was a very, very hard pill to swallow.
What do you, when you think about like what's next, would you do a show like that again?
Absolutely. This space is made for TV. We are not radio. Okay. I want to be in front of as many cameras as I can. There was one point during the show where someone was like, why does Jeremy have 4 cameras on him? And I'm like, because I'm entertaining. And you're
Well,
not.
yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna have to have you come on my show.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I just, well, I have this show Taste Buds with Stephanie, and it's been picked up for a season 2. So we're
Oh,
gonna start planning that and doing that, but that'll be fun. I
yeah.
do, I do think what I was attracted to about you was so much more your personality and what you bring to the table. And a lot of times when you're watching food cooking shows, sometimes you feel like it's manufactured. Like I knew your point of view, I knew who you were. I knew you were going to kind of be this a little bit edgier, a little bit funnier, a little bit sassier. And that really appealed to me. And I think there's like a lot there. And if you can add the skill of the pastry piece to it, like there's no telling where you could go from here.
That's the goal. I mean, people are like, do you want to win? And I was like, I mean, kind of. But also, I want to come back again. I want to be Miss Congeniality. And there's the thing is like that edit, of course, is like, it's an edit. So, yes, of course, I said everything I said. I'm not ashamed. Fucking liquid nitrogen. Okay. But I also said a lot of other things. And there was a lot of things on camera that weren't shown. But I will say at the end of episode 5, I did get a lot of really good airtime and I was able to like share my like point of view and like I had a really good ending message. So it's kind of funny because like a lot of people on the internet, especially Reddit, were like, Jeremy's such a bully. Jeremy's so mean. And I'm all like, I helped Deandra get her bonbons out of her mold. In fact, her and Lindsay wouldn't even had bonbons because they used my molds that I brought with me. But they're not going to show that.
Yeah. And you're not supposed to read the comments. And
I
I
know.
struggle with that because I'm obsessed with like every single morsel. But I do know that at some point, like you just have to go with what you got
Oh, yeah.
and try to be, because they do edit it and you can edit things that can look a million different ways.
Absolutely. Um, but it was really fun. I mean, Ludo and I had a really great on-camera chemistry. My friends are like, "Are you guys in a relationship
I mean,
now?"
he is kind of cute.
I mean, he's very cute and he's married, so I'm not like the scandal would be outrageous. Um, and I'm here for it,
That would be hilarious.
right?
Like,
Uh,
like scandal erupts on Food Network show. Okay, when we think about pastry in town, I have to ask you, like, are there people that are cooking things that you admire, or are there bakeries that you go to when you're not working that you're like, I just need this one thing?
I haven't really explored too much of the bakery circuit in Minneapolis as much as I should have. There is a bakery. I always say the name of it wrong, and I'm sorry. She was nominated for a James Beard Award last year. Cyrus, Circe.
Oh yeah, so yeah,
Eh,
Circe. Yep,
Oh, it
yep,
is Circe. Okay, great.
yep.
Yeah. I've been there a couple times. The
Cafe
bread
series. That's it. Cafe
series. Okay.
series. Yep. And her name is Sean
Um,
McKenzie, and she's amazing.
she's lovely. I met her. I interviewed with her. I could not do that 2 a.m. bread baking shift, but I did appreciate the time. But her food was delicious. I really enjoyed there. Um, that's like the only bakery I've like been to.
I want you to go to Lowney Bread on
Okay.
Lake Street.
Oh,
It's
okay.
cute. It's pink.
Love pink.
And
Oh, I
she
always try to go there. They have like the oddest hours. They're not open on Sundays.
possibly they're not because they're kind of family people, maybe.
Gotcha.
But it is worth seeking out. The
Okay.
croissants there feel very different, otherworldly, and fantastic. And it's all about the heritage grain.
Okay.
So I think you would kind of appreciate it because there's like a nuttiness to it, a mapliness to it that, I mean, those croissants are crazy good. And I've had a lot of croissants in my life.
Me too. They're so
Yeah.
cheap. Yes.
And
Um,
yes, and so delicious. And an almond croissant can be just like life-changing.
yes.
Have you had Diane Mua's almond croissants or her pistachio-filled croissants?
I have not. She just opened a place, right? Diane's place.
Yeah. Also, I
Yeah.
would highly recommend um just really I'm trying to like she has a lot of savory pastry that I
Yeah,
think you
I
would
heard
appreciate.
that.
Yeah.
I'm here for it. And it looks like it does lunch too, so it looks like a really cute spot.
Yeah,
I
it
just,
does.
I was like, it's all about time in this industry.
I know, and you work so much. So let's talk about like where if you have a day off and you
Mhm.
can have your perfect day in the Twin Cities, what would you do?
Oh, well, right now, I really want to go to this Keith Haring exhibit at the Walker.
It's good.
I've heard it's great.
There's a lot of dicks.
I love a lot of dicks. Um,
Full of
I,
dicks. You're gonna love it.
it's gonna remind me of my youth. Um, yeah, so like, I mean, I am all about like kilo coffee, let's go museum, just stroll around. I just want to have a nice leisurely day. I have a hammock in the backyard and the weather's been nice. So I'm just like, I don't need to do a lot. It's pretty chill here. And that's one of the reasons I enjoy it. Is I'm all like, okay. I mean, I also enjoy a lot of hustle and bustle. I lived in New York or Brooklyn. So it's like, if there is a show in town that's touring, I'll like absolutely go to a show.
Yeah. I when I was in the last time I was in Brooklyn was in a wedding and I was wearing this like khaki colored sheath dress and it was so hot. I profusely sweat through the entire dress and it like stained.
Oh no.
So I kind like it wasn't just like belly sweat or pit sweat. It was just all over. And I will always think of that when I think of Brooklyn now.
Yeah, I mean, if it's not the heat, it's the smell in the summer.
That's exactly right. Okay, Jeremy, we've had a fun time today, a fun chat.
Yeah.
I am looking forward to seeing you again. I know Jason said he thought he would have you on again because he was really delighted by you.
Okay.
And he does this thing on Tuesdays where he calls it Girls' Night, where we go to dinner sometimes. I'm going to make sure that we come and see you at 801 Fish.
Absolutely. And I work Tuesdays, so you let me know ahead of time and I'll be there.
Okay, excellent. And then you can maybe sit down with us and we can chat.
Yeah. Give you some desserts. Love
Yes,
that.
desserts. Thank you so much for being our guest, and I will follow up with you on some other opportunities coming in the future.
Awesome. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
thanks, Jeremy. All right, bye-bye.